Hello, everyone. And we're back for another episode of the Justin Caviar Show. My guest today is one of my dear friends, Lucas from Boost Your Biology. Lucas is an Australian leading biohacker with over 7 years of experience researching and experimenting with nootropics. Yes, nootropics. We're talking limitless, people, and other performing enhancing compounds. But I don't want to get into that yet. We'll take a deep dive. Lucas is extremely motivated to discover something big for science that can benefit millions of people globally. Lucas offers cutting-edge health content ranging from nutrition research, hormone research, and nootropic research. That's 99.9. Again, 99.9 of the world has never heard of, right? I didn't believe it either until I talked to him. So Lucas strives on offering insane value content on a global scale. And honestly, this guy's the best in the business. He works with A-list celebrities. You might have heard him on the Ben Greenfield's podcast. And Lucas, welcome to the show.
Justin, thanks for the intro, man. I'm stoked to be here. Can't wait to chat.
Absolutely, man. So let's get right into it. Tell people what you do.
Yeah, so basically my goal and mission is to offer extremely cutting-edge health information on a global scale. So really, I see myself as like a global educator to provide very underground health content to basically enhance the well-being of millions of people worldwide. So that really just ranges from, nutrition research, supplements, nootropics, other biohacking things, and other things like that. So yeah, really my mission is to just constantly deliver profound information.
Yeah, absolutely. And believe me, if anybody knows Justin and knows his favorite film of all time, it is Limitless with Bradley Cooper. And that's initially, I heard you on the Ben Greenfield podcast and wanted to reach out and get you on the show here. So what got you into this whole thing? Did you watch a movie? Did you watch Lucy and you're like, that's it, I'm hooked? Or how did this whole thing originate? What's the origin story?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of stemmed all the way back to when I was playing professional soccer. I was interested in just improving my awareness and my skills on the soccer field. Like I was always looking for different ways to improve my performance. And my dad's a pharmacist, so I had access to certain supplements and compounds. And I started researching them, and I fell in love with a couple of compounds the early days, one of which is very well known, acetyl L-carnitine. Responded very well to that, researched that, and then just saw how much of an impact it was making on my performance, not only on the soccer field, but also like productivity wise, memory, focus, things like that. And then just basically fell in love with the idea that we can take control of our physiology, that we can absolutely shift things in directions that suit our needs. And that's really where the whole journey sort of started.
Awesome. So what did you take before you came on this podcast?
This morning, I've only had adenylyl cobalamin, which is like a mitochondrial version of like a mitochondrial enhancing vitamin B12. I had a very small amount of artichoke extract and also a specific type of bile acid that helps with liver function. So very, very underground compounds.
Is it Tuca?
Yeah, Tutka.
Yeah. I took that today as well.
Nice.
Because you posted on your Instagram. Oh, by the way, if anyone is interested in like the cutting edge science for nootropics or overall health on Instagram, this is the man you want to follow. Real quick, we'll get into this at the end in the show notes, but what is your Instagram handle just so people can maybe look at it while we speak?
Yeah, so it's ergogenic_health. So ERGOGENIC_health.
Yeah. And honestly, guys, like this is cutting edge stuff, right? And Lucas, you're based out in Australia, correct?
Yep.
Gotcha. Have you ever been outside of Australia?
I've been overseas to Europe and
Okay.
I haven't been to the US though. That's my next destination.
Yeah, we want you to come. When you do come, we'll connect. What's it like in Australia as far as nootropics? Because everyone in America we all want to get ahead, right? And America's very competitive, especially in the business world. Everyone wants to be the best, and in sports and all that stuff, right? So what is it like in Australia? Is it the same? Is it very similar to the States, or is it completely laid back, surfing all day?
To be honest, it's it's pretty similar. Like there's a lot of us that are competitive, and I would say that, in fact, I would say I was actually having a think about how I've been as like growing up as a teenager. I would say I'm like one of the most competitive people on the planet. I've always just wanted to like win at everything. But yeah, I think generally speaking, everyone's, particularly in the city, like the central, like in the city, like everyone's hustling and stressed and under the pump, similar to like, New York, but just like to a milder degree sort of thing.
Yeah. And you're in Melbourne or Sydney?
I'm in Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. What's the difference between people from Sydney? It's completely irrelevant, but what's the difference between people from Sydney and Melbourne?
Geez, probably not much, apart from the fact that we have a better nightlife than Sydney, I'd say.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because most people, well, at least here in the States, when you think of Australia, you think of Sydney, you think of Great Barrier Reef. You really don't think of Melbourne. I know Melbourne because I have a lot of friends that live there, but most of us, when they think of Australia, they think of Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney's well known for its like awesome beaches, Bondi Beach and things. So it's pretty.
So we know that you work with nootropics, and you're all about the mind, optimizing brain function, right? But I know that you have a passion for fitness as well.
Mm.
If you can go into that, touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, well, since my early days, started out as like a soccer player, I was always looking at ways to improve like endurance, lung capacity, general fitness, aerobic capacity, anaerobic performance, things like that. So I was always researching and trialing a lot of the classic supplements like creatine, BCAAs, citrulline. Responded well to some of them, and then basically dabbled into the research and just sort of try to figure out how to apply them. And actually, in the very early days, I was a bit of a weirdo, a bit of a geek. I actually, I played table tennis, so I used to be a
really. Were you good? Does that get televised, or how does that work?
I was ranked number 1 out of all the schools in at one stage in I think I was about 17 in my region.
Wow.
That's a little side fact. I don't think I've ever disclosed that to anyone.
That's
but
awesome. We got to play. I play ping pong. We play ping pong here, and when you come here, we got to play. I got a mean serve.
Yeah, actually, back in the day, I ended up installing something called speed glue on my bat.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, dude,
I love it.
And then basically, it enhances the spin. And apparently, it was illegal, to use this glue if you're in competition, but it definitely helps. Yeah,
yeah. A lot of people in the States that are baseball fans, it's kind of like using pine tar, or using there's a certain substance that you use that's illegal, and you put it on the rosin bag, and then you touch the ball when you throw a curveball, because you have this substance. It makes the curveball a lot more wicked. Wow. So I can imagine it's very similar to that. So someone that's into athletics, right? What are some things that people can do to enhance their performance immediately? And what are some, substance, maybe even lifestyle or diet changes that they can enhance their athletic performance, endurance, strength, power, everything, explosiveness in the long run as well as a short term?
Yeah, it's a great question. So looking at short-term boosters, I'd be looking at compounds that would be CNS, like central nervous system stimulants. Anything that's going to improve dopamine output, norepinephrine or noradrenaline, and adrenaline. Yeah. But obviously it depends on the sport. So for certain sports, there's a inverted U arousal versus performance. Have you seen that graph before?
No, I've never seen that. Explain that to the people that are listening.
So basically, it's if you're completing a task that you're familiar with and you know how to do it, and then you have a crowd watching, people watching, you want your arousal to be high because you know how to perform that task. Whereas if you're when I say arousal, I mean your wakefulness, vigilance, and sort of
Right.
general up and about feeling. But
Yeah.
when you're completing something new or practicing a new skill, you do not want your arousal to be super heightened because you're practicing a new skill. So it depends on the sport, but really, like, let's say short term, let's say 100-meter dash. Let's say you're up against Usain Bolt.
Well, there's nothing you could take to beat that guy.
Just forget it. You've already lost. But
genetics are true, bitch.
If you did want to like optimize for like 100-meter dash, then I mean, compounds like that particular one I mentioned on Ben Greenfield's show, the thiamine tetrahydro, it's TTFD, Thiamax. That's a good one. And then also things like Bromantine, although that's banned. It's quite good for athletic performance. But really, like, there's a whole plethora of CNS stimulants outside the scope of caffeine. I mean, caffeine works. Like, we know that. It's solid, has a shit ton of research behind it. Having said that, it has its drawbacks. For example, one, tolerance is built rapidly, so you cannot continue to use it at the same dose and still get the same effect. That's just biochemistry. That's just how it is. But I'm looking into compounds to provide a caffeine-like kick without the tolerance or habituation, things like that.
Got it. And a lot of these compounds like Bromantane and stuff, do you build a tolerance like caffeine, or is it kind of clean slate? You're going to feel this exact same every time.
Bromantane's atypical because it doesn't have any tolerance or habituation. Even after 3 months of administration or dosing, it does not have any signs of withdrawal or habituation because it's working on pathways in the brain that caffeine just doesn't hit. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so why would someone take Bromantane besides being an athlete?
Well, originally it was used for the Soviet military and cosmonauts. So you can imagine how and why it was developed.
It's kind of like amphetamines with Germany.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally designed to withstand physical and mental stress. Like, who doesn't need something to support their physical and mental stress these days? So, like, really, its applicability is so broad spectrum. It was definitely one of my early favorites. I don't use it much anymore. Just I don't feel like I need that sort of kick anymore. I need to actually calm down a bit.
Right. You're not drinking 7 energy drinks, you're drinking 10 bangs a day. Oh man. So, all right. So you got Bromantane. So how much, let's say someone wanted to experiment with Bromantane, how many milligrams or grams should they take per day?
Yeah. So Bromantane's typically dosed at around 25 milligrams to 50 milligrams daily. In some of the studies where they were looking at neurasthenia, which is general mental weakness, just, like, for example, people are recovering from, let's say, severe sickness, and maybe even cancer. I'm not allowed to say that, but severe.
Oh, by the way, FYI, we are not doctors / medical professionals. So please, before doing anything, consult your primary care physician. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I mean, that's where it can be used. 25 to 50 milligrams, almost 5 days a week, and then 2 days off, or they can do like 3 weeks on, 1 week off.
What would you recommend to a 40-plus-year-old, maybe 50-plus-year-old mother or father that is a stay-at-home parent that has kids running around screaming? It's very chaotic. It's very stressful. What would you recommend besides like meditation or something, like as far as like a nootropic or anything that you can take exogenously? What would you recommend that person takes to make sure that they stay nice and smooth and nice and calm and keep everything in perspective without going crazy?
Yeah, great question. Let's sort of look at it from like, I'll give you 3 options. Sort of, I'll break that down. Number 1, we'll look at, I'd say, L-theanine between 200 to 400 milligrams. That's going to reduce anxiety, reduce cortisol, reduce stress. improve that alpha wave state. It actually mimics the effects of meditation. So that's quite safe, and can be stacked with anything really.
Right.
Have you ever used theanine yourself?
It's funny you ask, because I just took some before this podcast.
Yeah. So the theanine's good.
Hold on. I guess now I have to prove it. Thanks, bro.
Yeah. Is that Life Extension? Who's that?
Yeah, Life Extension. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Are they good, or should I throw this out the window?
Yeah, they're good. No, they're good. They're
good.
good. I like that brand.
Yeah, I take 200 milligrams. Is that good, or should I take more?
200 to 400 is a sweet spot. It's whatever works for you, but I've gone up to like 800, 1,000 milligrams before.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you noticed a difference?
You just felt mellow, just very mellow.
What about theanine? As far as like caffeine, you build up a tolerance with theanine. Do you build up a tolerance like caffeine?
Not so much. It's pretty consistent. Yeah, but it's, again, I wouldn't be sticking to that all the time. I like, the smart strategy is to rotate between compounds. And I explore the whole concept of like cycling in my Nootropics masterclass, which basically looks at different ways that people can cycle between compounds. But theanine's pretty good. We've got another one, taurine. I've spoken about taurine quite a lot.
Yeah, taurine. I have taurine.
Although it's Although it is found in Red Bull, most people are like, oh, this must not be healthy. But funnily enough, it's actually one of the most beneficial amino acids known to mankind. It's just,
why would someone take taurine? What's the benefit of taking taurine?
It's going to mimic some of the effects of theanine. It's going to increase GABA, reduce anxiety, reduce excitatory. When I say excitatory, I mean like you can be excited, but it's not channeled in the right way. Like you can be over excited, but not in the right fashion, if that makes sense. Like you'll be like let's say you're going to a party and you need to be on point, calm, focused, and just free flow, not like a hyper jacked.
Yeah. You don't want to be that weirdo in the corner that's twigging out.
So that's where taurine can be, beneficial.
Okay, so if somebody, let's touch on that, because now I'm curious. If someone's going to a party and they want to be, they want to be Bradley Cooper and Limitless, and they want to be on point, they don't want to be too over excited, they want to be perfectly balanced, they don't want to, maybe they have a little bit of anxiety, they get the butterflies while they're walking up the steps. Well, what would you take, theanine and taurine, or is there something else?
Oh, I've got my back pocket favorites for this one. So,
what is that? What should I take before I go to the ballroom?
So, there's a particular herb from Brazil, and if you go to Brazil and mention this one, everyone will be like, you want some of this one? Like everyone will know, because it's a well-known aphrodisiac, but although it's an aphrodisiac, it's extremely reduces anxiety and puts you in a really good mood, and also generally speaking, it makes me ultra sarcastic. Like if I took some before this show, then the chances of me saying the wrong thing, like something inappropriate, is going to be increased.
Oh man, I wish you would have took some, man. It would have made the show a lot more entertaining. We might have to take it out of the entrepreneur category and put it in the comedy category, but that's okay. Yeah.
We'll do a second podcast for that.
Yeah, but part 2.
This particular herb is called Katuwaba. Katuwaba. And basically it's an adaptogen. So it means it helps one deal with stress, like rhodiola, and the other ones, ginseng. But Katuwaba, like before a party, I've tried it numerous times, and literally there've been times when I'd take it. And by the way, yes, it's in the same family as cocaine, the actual plant. It's in the same plant family, but it doesn't have any of the same. It doesn't have cocaine in it, but it would have similar alkaloids, which probably it makes sense as to why people love it. Because the stimulation.
Does it give you like a jolt?
It's too smooth to even. It's not like a pushy, yucky jolt. It's like a
gotcha. Okay.
clean, and it's just no side effects really.
Yeah.
And even the next day, like you wake up and there's no come down or there's no like,
Yeah.
you just don't feel shit the next day. And that's why it's
That's interesting. I'm gonna check that out. Can people buy that just on Amazon, or you have to go to some weird, sketchy website to get this stuff?
I'm actually there is a company in Australia that sells it, but there's others in the States. I'm trying to actually find a vendor to put on my website. Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, what do you think is the most underrated, commonly known nootropic or substance that people maybe walk by every time they go to GNC or they go to Vitamin Shop, and it's right there on the shelves, but nobody knows the science behind it? What do you think the most underrated one is, and what do you think the most overrated one is?
Jeez, that's a good question. Oh my God. Let's think about, I'm just going to picture me walking into GNC being like, I'm just going to imagine what they have on the shelf right now. Just wait. I'm walking in, go and look on the right-hand side. What have they got here? They'll have like glutamine, BCAAs, essential aminos. I would say
the herb section, they have almost every popular herb you can find.
Oh, I mean, from a herbal perspective, one that's underrated would be one that I love, but it's artichoke extract. I've spoken about it a fair bit, but I like it because I think everyone needs some degree of liver support. No matter who you are, what you do, what profession, whatever. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a hustler, whatever, you need some degree of liver support. It's like all organs need to be nourished in the body. And for me, my go-to is artichoke. And the reason being is if you look at the traditional Chinese medicine application for this herb, it literally says contraindications, which means side effects or whatever, none. So it's almost like it's applicable. So it's almost
it's awesome. It's a silver bullet.
So the thing is, like, what artichoke hits, it targets the liver. So it's known as a hepatotropho-restorative, which means that it can regenerate liver cells, similar to like milk thistle, but milk thistle has some other side effects I'm not a fan of. But like I think artichoke, it really does. It is underrated in my opinion. That's probably because I'm a little bit biased because I just generally respond super well to it.
Milk thistle. Anyone that ever talks about liver support supplements, they always go to milk thistle, but you don't like it.
I like it, but I don't think it's awesome for men, like for their hormones. I'm just not
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so milk thistle is off the charts. Don't take it. You heard it here, folks. What about tuca versus artichoke for liver? You take both or one or the other? Which one's better? Which one, or do you stack it?
Yeah, I mean, they both have crossover effects. I take both, but I like tuca because it has some research that it may potentiate or enhance thyroid hormones. And I mean, we spoke about nootropics, but really like thyroid hormones are like the thyroid governs like basically everything. So you optimize the thyroid, you'll just be doubling your energy,
Yeah, so let's segue into that. What are some of the things that people might overlook that everyone's trying to take stimulants and get jacked up, but what are some of the things that most people overlook from a health point of view that if they just fix the basic stuff and then they stack the more advanced stuff, it would make double the difference? Well, what are some of the things that people overlook?
Great question. So I'd say like starting out with mineral deficiencies or nutrient deficiencies. Like let's say, for example, I'll use myself as an example, man. I messed up here. And this is like a couple of years ago. I overlooked this. I was iron deficient for like a year and a half. And I'm like, how the hell am I iron deficient? I'm eating a shit ton of meat. I'm having red meat like 5 times a week. But there were other reasons for that. I was taking a bunch of things that can lower iron, but that's a good example for like correcting nutrient deficiencies needs to be the starting point, because if you don't have the framework to even respond to these compounds, then they're not going to work, So
yeah. So what would you recommend? Like, how does obviously we don't know what's going on with everybody. You just take a blood test. You order like a sample panel, or do you just take a multivitamin? What do you do? Someone that doesn't know anything.
Oh, somebody doesn't know anything. A good place to start would be a blood test.
Okay.
Just get a snapshot but then from like a naturopathic perspective, we have like vital signs, like actual, I can look at someone and be able to tell, like, do you have some degree of nutrient deficiency? I can look at their nails. Do they have white spots on their nails? Do they have pink?
What happens if they have white spots? Because I don't have any white spots, but I did when I was a kid.
It means that it can be an indication of zinc deficiency or calcium deficiency. Things like
I had that as a kid, but they went away. So yeah, those zinc pills are paying off, or the oysters. What else?
We can look at the outer eyebrow. If the outer eyebrows are thinning, they can indicate sluggish thyroid, sluggish metabolism. Even basically patchy beards can be like, if men have like patchy beards, they don't have like proper growth. That can be like vitamin A deficiency.
You think that might be genetic as well, or?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because I know some people that they eat McDonald's and they're not healthy and they have thick beards.
Yeah.
Just keeping it real. But also, I know some people that are super healthy that have patchy beards, so they just shave it off.
Yeah. I mean, definitely genetics. But
moral of the story is, guys, is that if you really want to know, you got to take the test. Right?
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Or am I completely wrong?
We need a baseline. We need some degree of
Okay.
objective data. The blood test never lies. The blood test will never lie.
So what do you think the most overrated supplement is? We didn't get to that.
Oh, geez. Okay. Most overrated, BCAAs.
Really? Why?
Because BCAAs just doesn't make sense for somebody who's not vegan.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately, the research is not strong enough, and also BCAAs can really f with someone's mood. Like, seriously, just make someone feel flat, depressed, and not in a good mood. And that's because it competes for shares the same transporter as tyrosine and tryptophan. So if it's blocking these amino acids from getting into the brain because you're dumping so much, you're sipping on BCAAs all day, you're just blocking the synthesis of dopamine and serotonin. And no wonder, like, you feel like shit. And second to that is that BCAAs can also potentially make someone more prone to like insulin resistance and pre-diabetes, which is insane. I have my caption quote is "from athletic to diabetic." That's my.
Oh my gosh, jeez. There's a lot of people that are drinking BCAAs right now, listening to this, and they're like, "Shit."
They just, you can hear in the background them spitting it out.
What about EAAs? Because I know those are way better. Do those count, or those still are terrible?
They're fine. They're fine because it's the whole suite of amino acids. It's not just leucine, isoleucine, valine. The essential amino acids are most ideal. I personally use whey protein. I have it pretty much every night. Although some people are sensitive to whey and they'll be like, "Oh, I can't tolerate dairy." Well, then don't have something else.
You can always get plant-based protein as well.
Yeah, I mean hemp protein.
Yeah, hemp protein's great. Yeah. Well, so I take EAAs, but I take it while I'm working out in a fasted state, and also when I'm not in a fasted state, I'll take it just to maintain muscle mass while I'm working out, so my muscles aren't, getting completely depleted. What about if someone takes that stuff, but they only do it while they work out, not when they're just hanging out watching Netflix?
As in, like, they're taking it not when they're training. It's not.
No, they only take it when they're training. They're not just sipping it. Like if you're watching Netflix and you're just pounding BCAAs. Like obviously that's probably not good, right? But what happens if you're taking it while you work out, like as an intra shake?
That's ideal. That's like literally the most ideal time to be using EAAs because you're trying to offset the catabolic nature of exercise. It's just going to promote a positive nitrogen balance, which means that it helps with stimulating muscle protein synthesis. So really the most ideal thing would be like 10 to 20 grams of 10 to 20 grams of EAAs intra workout and smash a high protein meal post workout.
What's your thought process on people taking a lot of sugar to spike insulin right after working out for muscle mass? Is that
Well,
bro science or?
look, to be honest, insulin is very anti-catabolic. Like it does prevent muscle breakdown. And there is some research to suggest that we do need an insulin spike to help with amino acid dumping into the muscle cell.
Right.
I've noticed personally, man, like when I don't have refeed with a high sugar meal post workout, my recovery is delayed. So if we're trying to optimize for recovery, and let's say it's Wednesday morning, you want to train Thursday morning at the same intensity, you got to have a carb feed. You got to refeed. From an athletic performance perspective, we're not talking about body composition. We're talking about performance, not like this is like a huge trade-off between performance versus aesthetics. Like it's an interesting topic.
What about people that drink carb drinks while they work out?
So this is most beneficial for maintaining performance during your workout and keeping glucose available. But honestly, I'd say leave that for the bodybuilders who know, who are really serious about building muscle. And also for like endurance athletes that are pro cyclists. If they're doing like 100 kilometers, or how many miles is that? 70 miles. They need to be having. They need the glucose. They need it. Like,
what if you get someone that just has like a normal job? They're not a bodybuilder, but they're super passionate. They want to get jacked for the summer. And they're like, dude, I'm not a bodybuilder, but I don't care. I want to look like a bodybuilder. This isn't my profession, but I need to look good at the beach. I want to get juicy. Would that work? Or maybe it's a counterbalance that if you're pounding carb drinks all day, you actually might put on some weight. What about aesthetics? What's the highest level for aesthetics specifically over performance?
So in that scenario, if we're like trying to drop body fat,
I'm asking for a friend, by the way.
To be honest, it's not necessary to use the carbohydrates during your workout. Like, think about it. Like you're training, unless you're depleted. It depends on your diet as well, like how much you're having during the day. Like just personally, man, like I've gone up to like 500 grams of carbs a day with no problems. Like it's all about just ensuring you're really freaking insulin sensitive. Like and that's where like I use supplements to like enhance the glucose to enter the muscle. Like there's compound you can take to like shuttle the sugar into the muscle as well.
Got you. Okay. So we talked about the most underrated supplement. We talked about the most overrated supplements, right? What's one of the biggest misconceptions? Let's go back to nootropics. What's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have with nootropics that you see other people that are giving advice that you don't agree with necessarily?
Oh, okay. I'd say, I think one thing that we see like an issue with is overdosing on acetylcholine donors like CDP choline, alpha GPC, choline bitartrate. And the reason being is because most of these people are already eating eggs for breakfast. Yeah. And eggs are eggs are amazing. They're like one of the best brain foods we can have. But the thing is, they already contain decent amounts of choline. So like if they're having 3 eggs a day and they're also taking CDP choline or alpha GPC, eventually they're hitting a point where their acetylcholine levels are just through the roof. And run into all these side effects like muscle twitching, excess salivation, like just anxious, depression, things like that. So I think the acetylcholine suggestions are, just be wary of them.
Be wary of those. Okay. Now, I'm glad you brought that up because I want to segue into this. What happens if somebody has a terrible diet? They're eating McDonald's, but they're not eating the way they should be eating for their brain and for their body, but they're taking lots of nootropics. So what do you see with those people? Is it kind of like, does it still work? Is it kind of, not kind of frowned upon, or, what's going on in that situation where you got a guy that's eating a terrible diet, but he's taking brain cortex and all this stuff, but he's eating like Wendy's and stuff. What does that look like?
So the way I always look at it is like nootropics are the icing on the cake. Having said that, though, they can make up for a shitty lifestyle in certain circumstances, like
Yeah.
without a doubt. Like,
Yeah.
for example, I've been away. I've been away on weekends where I'm like, have had like 5 hours sleep, eaten shit, but like, and then I've used nootropics, and it's brought me back up to baseline. And I'm like, I'm functioning, and I'm still fine. Like, I'm still killing it.
Yeah.
I'm just operating, but like,
Yeah.
if you have an optimal baseline, you're doing the right thing with diet, nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, and then adding nootropics. Your baseline goes from there all the way up to there. So that's where, like, really we're trying to get the foundations right first.
Right. Yeah. I think we need to emphasize that is the nootropics are great and everybody wants to be like, Scarlett Johansson and Lucy, but you got to fix the baseline. You can't be scarfing down cheeseburgers and then start taking Bromantine and expect to, feel incredible. That's definitely pretty interesting with that. So I'm curious to ask you specifically. You've been doing this for a while and stuff. What's your most popular field that you get questions and comments and concerned on? Is it based on the brain? Is it based on body? Like, when people reach out to you, are they reaching out to you to help their fitness and their aesthetic and the way they look? Or are they trying to feel better? How does that look?
Yeah. So, geez, one of the biggest things that I've been bombarded with is, and this is a really difficult condition to treat, and I'm not a medical doctor, but it's it's called PSSD, post SSRI sexual dysfunction. So there's a lot of people that have used SSRIs, and they're known to lower sex drive, but they've come off it, and months later they still have no libido, or their sex drive is wrecked. That's like $100,000. I'm sure it's worth a lot more now. Solution. No one's figured it out. We have sort of band-aids, but no one's actually truly found a cure. Everyone thinks that they know what to do, but it's difficult. But I'd say between that and just general motivation and productivity and focus, that's like a huge one. People are just no one can focus these days. Like, I feel like everyone's got ADHD.
Do you think that's overusing stimulants, or maybe because stimulants are more accessible with energy drinks and different supplements, or do you think it's social media? What do you think that is?
Oh, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, social media, without a doubt, scrolling through feeds, like bang, bang, things like that, rapid fire, things that are just unstable. But I definitely think, there's also like a neurotransmitter dysfunction going on, and also like neuroinflammation. Certain foods may trigger like symptoms for certain people. Like, for example, I'll just use an example. Like, for me, like, if I have exposure to, funnily enough, potato starch, that will like just knock me out for a week, and I just feel like it just really affects my my energy, man. Like, I haven't done any like proper food testing yet, but I'm sure I might be like allergic or intolerant. But the thing is, like, people can be allergic or intolerant to so many different foods, not know about it, and they're wondering why they're always fatigued. Like, these things, like, although they're super simple and they're just freaking foods, but they can actually really affect our biochemistry.
Yeah, I want to ask that. So let's get real for a second, right? How much does genetics play a part versus, all the things that you can do, right? Like, obviously we know not everyone's LeBron James. LeBron James didn't choose to be 6'8" and have the genetics like that, right? So when it comes to the brain, right? And I've talked to, PhD neuroscientists on this show before. How much can you actually do? Like, realistically, right? How much can you actually do versus how much can you change your genetics? Maybe not change them, but how much can you do to help your genetics? Like, let's say you just have bad genes, like your genes are god awful, right? But you have this motivation to become better and to become smarter, become a better athlete. But you have wide hips and you have a terrible metabolism. You're just not created to be optimal in all fields, right? How much does genetic play a part realistically, and how much can you realistically change?
And, I think genetics, unfortunately, does play a massive role. Although when it comes to shifting elements of your body or mind that really require heavy hitting things, and then we need to look at things that are like ultra potent and ultra powerful, like these peptides, these research chemicals, like something from a supplement store is probably not really going to hit it. This is where you need to look into things like the cosmetic neurology and things like that. But again, like there's only so much diet and lifestyle can do. But I mean, it's a difficult one. Like some people are just blessed, they've like LeBron James, Usain Bolt, yourself, myself.
How dare you? You're too kind. You're too kind. You said something earlier that I'm curious about, and you said that when you're traveling, you're eating like crap, but you take nootropics, maybe you stack it, maybe you take one, it brings you up to baseline, right? But then you also said that if you have a good lifestyle, your stress is low, your cortisol is low, you're getting a lot of sleep, you're exercising, your diet is on point, and then you implement nootropics, and now your baseline goes up here. So I'm curious, what happens if you're always up here? Does this become the new baseline? Because I could see someone, eating perfect, doing all the right things, and then taking nootropics every day, and they feel like a god. But then God mode feels like normal mode because they want to feel like that every day. What's the problem with that psychologically, and how do we prevent that from happening? Because I could see a lot of people getting addicted to feeling like that every day, no days off.
You're looking at someone who's a culprit, but I guess like you do get used to feeling like that, and some people are like, oh, that's not realistic to feel good every day. But I mean, I look at it like life is short. I have resources to help me feel good. I'm like, there's things that we can do to make ourselves perform at our peak. Like, why not tap into it? Like the thing is, if you look at evolution, look at like the human species back thousands of years ago, like we were using specific teas at ceremonies to enhance the experience. Like look at the spiritual the very first form of medicine is shamanism, shamanic, administering ayahuasca, things like that. That entire process, that's a ceremony. They're trying to enhance the spiritual experience using like herbal therapies. Like that's how it is. Humans have always evolved to want to be better, and these are just other resources. But I see what you mean though. Like you can fall into a trap that, like, if you're not at your peak all the time, then you feel disappointed. So and I've been there before. Like if I'm at like 7 out of 10, I'm like, why aren't I feeling amazing? And you just get frustrated.
Because that's how I am, right? Like I want to feel 10 out of 10 every single day, right? So I'm kind of asking for myself, and I don't want people to fall into the trap. I want people to be very aware of like when they take nootropics or, when they do these life-changing things or mind-altering substances, you're going to feel great, right? But there is an issue where now great is normal and normal is bad. So I want people to be very aware of not falling into that trap, because a lot of the times people only talk about the highlights, right? And in my business, like we do marketing, we do PR, we do speaking engagements and stuff. And everyone, especially like our competitors and people in the field, they're always talking about the highlights, right? Like I heard one time a good marketer only tells you the highlights. And I don't agree with that, because I feel like you're not building the trust, because eventually they're going to find out and then you lose their trust and then you get a bad reputation. I always like telling people this is what's possible. This is the benefits, but also this is what's possible. Here are the negatives. And I want people to realize that yes, these are great things to do and they will enhance your life, but be aware of that there are some negative things, right?
Mm.
And with great power comes great responsibility from
Mm.
Spider-Man. What would you say about that? What
Yeah,
are some of the, let's get into that. What are some of the negative things about nootropics that nobody talks about because maybe it might hurt their brand, because your brand's nootropics, but you're an honest guy and that's why people love you. What are some of the things that people shy away from?
yeah. I'm happy to share some of my experiences. Like I've had situations where, like it's been really difficult to like be out and social. There've been times when I've formulated stacks and I'm so damn tense and
Right.
anxious that it's like a pressure, some like degree of like tension that's just in the background. There's no, it's not even real, but it's like it's a tension that's there that's making me overthink what I'm gonna freaking say. Like, and I'm just out, and I'm like, and I'm sure people can listening in would be able to relate to this. Is like, when I'm overthinking when I'm overthinking about what I'm gonna say, that's when I know things are not right. Like, it's when I'm like, no, this is not how I should be. Like there's certain stacks. For example, there's like, cordyceps mushroom. Like, it's awesome energy, focus, whatever. But for me, like I cannot take that if I'm trying to make friends. like just I can't, man. I'm just too serious and I'm just way too self-obsessed and not interested in other people. Like that's a downfall. It's a negative.
You heard it here, folks. If you want to be antisocial, take cordyceps mushrooms. Antisocial drug number one.
I mean, that's one thing, but I guess thing is, man, like what is considered a normal, like let's say most people wake up, like what is the normal mode of functioning? Like, is it you have to wake up with brain fog and feel fatigued? Is that considered normal? Like,
I guess it's relative, right? Because if you're used to living like that for 10 years or 20 years, I know some people that I never get headaches for me, right? But I know a lot of people that if they drink the night before or they don't have caffeine right away, they get headaches every single morning like clockwork. For me, and by all means, I drink a lot of caffeine. I can go to 4 or 5, 6 o'clock the next day, no headache. I just don't get headaches. It's my genetics or something. I don't know. My parents don't get headaches either. So there is some things that affect people differently, while taking these things. And that's another thing actually I want to touch on while we're on topic is not what you take is not going to affect what your neighbor is going to feel when they take the same thing along with your girlfriend or your husband. What would you say about that? And how do you, when you're evaluating a client or a patient and you're looking at them and saying, this is for you, and you don't really have that much information, and you know that each substance affects each individual different, how do you approach that situation being an expert?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have the technology to assess someone's like neurotransmitter balance accurately. We have things that can do it a snapshot, but it's not super accurate. So then the next best thing that we go by is symptom picture, like looking at the overall state of someone's being, and I'll assess, do you wake up with energy? Do you struggle to get shit done? Do you struggle to focus? Then like you can start to see a pattern, although it's not super accurate, and it's the best that we can do is like human interaction to figure out this stuff.
So
but
it's
then
probably like trial and error, right?
Yeah, it is trial and error, but then also you can add in, you ask the person, what have you responded well to? Like, have you ever used something that you respond well to? If they respond well to caffeine, that gives me clues. Well, maybe they need some nourishment in that direction. If they respond poorly to caffeine, then it's like, all right, how do we support that?
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. So if somebody, because I'm a big fan of Limitless, right? Obviously, we know that that's not realistic. There's no NZT48, folks. I wish there was, or else I'd be taking it. But I just have a question. If somebody came to you and was like, listen, I want to be Bradley Cooper and Limitless, what is the ideal stack to be on point, to help my learning, to help my motivation. I don't want to feel cracked out. I just want to feel very clear, but I want to be able to acquire knowledge easier. I want things to make sense faster. What would you recommend that person starts with at the lowest base level that maybe you can go to GNC to the highest extreme level to like you have to be in the lab?
Jeez, okay. From the base level, let's say we're at GNC, a simple stack of, let's say, rhodiola combined with L-tyrosine at about 1,000 milligrams, that sort of, and then adding in a bit of maybe like about 100 milligrams of theanine, that trio would be a nice like introductory stack that will get someone feeling energized, focused, but also blunting off a bit of the anxiety. That could be a very simple one. And then ultimately, if they want to get really experimental, there's one compound that's popped up on my radar that literally no one has spoken about. And this will be the first time I'm dropping it on this episode.
Drum roll, please.
It's called JZP110. Let me just double check that I got that right. Yeah, it's JZP110.
Jesus, where does somebody find that? That's some sketchy offshore lab.
It's
that's not. I know that's not available on Amazon for sure.
Definitely not. It's solriamfetol. It's used to treat narcolepsy / it'll be a modafinil alternative.
Okay, again, so it's kind of like Provigil.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, in terms of sourcing and accessibility, dude, like you'd have to get this synthesized by a lab so far. But I'm hoping in the near future I'll be able to add it to my website as like a research chemical, not for human use.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Have we? Yeah, not for human use. Have you tried this compound before, or know anyone that's taken it? How do you know it works, and how do you know it's not BS?
Oh, I definitely know it does work, because I'm having a look at the early. So the thing is, these studies get released, but they're not very easy to find. But I've got the studies. I can see them literally. They're called pilot studies. They're like early trials, and you can see these early studies on JZP110.
That's interesting.
They're promising, man. Like for wakefulness, alertness, and I had a look at the mechanism of action, and holy shit, like it looks pretty amazing.
Yeah. What? How does it work? What's like the method? What's the process with that? What can you relate it to that people might know off the top of their head?
It'll be like similar to, like, let's say modafinil blended with a mixture of maybe like caffeine plus like cacao or something like that. I've got a friend that's going to be sampling it soon, a lab rat friend who's willing to
those guys.
Willing to volunteer.
Keyword lab rat friend. Listen, if you have a circle of friends and one of them isn't lab rat friend, you need to reevaluate your circle. Because you're doing something wrong. I'm just gonna let you know now.
Oh geez, yeah.
I hate talking about compounds that people can't get. That's the most thing, because like when I listen to your Ben Greenfield podcast, and when I listen to other people and they talk about all these amazing NZT48 compounds, you're like, all right, what do we do? And it's like, oh, it's actually not available for human consumption. It's so irritating. So I actually hate talking about things like this. But I was curious. Hopefully it comes on the market, and then we could re-air this episode or do a part 2.
Dude, I am excited to see this hit some market. Like the thing is, I don't really look into like the legalities of. All I'm doing is like I'm just trying to find whatever works, like what's out there. But look, I'll be phase 1 randomized crossover open label trial was done in 2019 in healthy adult subjects with and without food, looking at the pharmacokinetics. 32 subjects, 50 female. 53% black, 46% white, mean age 35.6, and they're looking at the effects of it. And seems like the most common side effect was insomnia, which would make sense because it
Which
keeps
would
you
make
awake.
sense. Yeah, it keeps you going, keeps the motor running. What do you think some of these, maybe 20, 30 years down the line, these nootropics are going to show? Like, is it kind of like an unrealistic question that, like, maybe if you take certain compounds in 40 years, everyone has colon cancer? Well, what do you think? What are your concerns with that? Or do you think that the science, there's zero evidence that it's going to have any long-term effects? So someone that's doing nootropics every day.
I think that what's really sad is that I actually think that there'll be a major increase in brain tumors, but that's not from nootropics. I mean, like from Bluetooth headsets and stuff. That's my suspicion. But I think certain nootropics may be maybe not protective against it, but I guess maybe like will help. Because remember, the true definition of a nootropic is that it enhances memory and cognitive function, but is safe and non-depleting sort of thing. So like there have to be compounds that actually hit 5 criteria. But yeah, I think like the future, I mean, you mean in terms of like the long-term dangers or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, right? Because like we all know stories of when people talk about things from the past, like, oh yeah, like even cigarettes and tobacco. Nobody knew the long-term effects back in the day. They had the Marlboro Man as the cowboy. Everyone's smoking their face off. And then we find out that you get lung cancer, 30, 40 years later. Do you think we'll have any situation with nootropics, or the evidence says that probably not?
Well, let's like be really practical and basically let's look at it on a spectrum, like because not all nootropics have the same risk profile. So like we've got compounds on the left-hand side that you will see at GNC that have a shit ton of human research that we've seen tried and tested for hundreds of years that are safe. But then you've got these other compounds that are like lesser known but sort of fringe. So I guess like we'll find out. But I mean, thing is, like I look at them and I look at other things that people do, and I look at the other things that are way worse. For example, just being in and around air pollution for years on end, dude, that's going to be way more risky than some of the risky nootropics. Like it's going to, it's on a spectrum. Like,
what about like alcohol and stuff? Do you think they should be worried about long-term effects of alcohol versus long-term effects of nootropics, or we just don't know yet?
To be honest, I've seen people say that like small amounts of alcohol can be good for longevity, can be good for, but alcohol is a stressor, just like exercise, just like sauna, just like training. It's a stressor, but micro stresses are actually good for the body because it helps build resilience. But really doing alcohol, 2 to 3 glasses a day of wine every 5 days a week, even if it is red wine, it's not protective. It's not going to be, it's too far. It's like overtraining. Like overtraining is not good. Over drinking is not good.
But it has the resveratrol.
Yeah, I mean, it has the resveratrol, but
is there any compound that's more overused than that one? I feel like I hear about that one all the time. Oh, wine's good. I feel like here, especially in America, we need like excuses to drink wine and consume alcohol. And that's one of the biggest things that they bring up when they're like, oh yeah, you can drink all the wine you want.
We have to I'm going to have to try and find a nice marketing ploy to like use that same sort of tactic for another thing that's like unhealthy. Like, there has to be another way to look into that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what are some of the more riskier nootropics that people are ingesting now?
Oh man, I've got my geek friends from like the UK and from the States that have experimented with compounds that, again, like literally no one has heard of. Actually, there's a doctor in Egypt that I've been talking to recently. He
got the pharaohs. Oh man.
But like they've got, what's the one I'm actually looking at right now? I'm actually looking at getting my hands on phenclonine, FENCLONINE. Now that I would say it's sort of risky, but I've used riskier in the past.
What do you mean risky? Like, how do you identify risk?
Based on the fact that if I do take it, I'm aware of the fact that it might disrupt another aspect of my mental state. Like, there's so many aspects of the mental state, like the mental functioning, memory, focus, concentration, social skills. Like, there's so many aspects to it that I'm aware of what it might do. So I've got the things. Thing is, like, I'm aware of what it might do, but I've also got things that might help to counteract what it might do. Like, in the background, like, you can't just be using these willy-nilly, like, without any understanding on what they might do, because you might run into trouble. Like, you might just.
What are the difference between, like, drugs that are, you need a prescription for, like Provigil or, I don't know, Adderall or something, right? Ritalin, versus some of these nootropics that you can buy that there's not too much research. Well, what are the dangers between the two? Because they're both looked at as like cognitive enhancing, right? People take Adderall and amphetamines before a test. So all these college kids now are taking this stuff, and it's very popular on college campuses. What's the difference between a chemical like that you need a prescription for versus a nootropic, like, I don't know, any type of nootropic that you could find on Amazon or any other type of website?
Yeah, so I actually did a blog post on this, smart drugs versus nootropics. So, like, these, they're off-label use of ADHD. So Ritalin, Adderall, whatever, all of those.
Vyvanse.
All of those. So basically, when we look at those drugs, they're basically they're effective at releasing dopamine and giving people a boost and really enhancing cognitive function and executive function, but they do it in a way that's depleting. It's very, very depleting, just like cocaine and things like that. It's very depleting over time. So, like, thing is, with regular usage, unfortunately, it leaves. We spoke about the baseline before. If you want to lower your baseline, just take Adderall or Ritalin.
Why do you think people are so addicted to it? What's the mechanism? I know people that they can't even function, that they do amphetamines every day, and they have prescription from their doctor, but they can't live without it. If they're not on Adderall, that's it. And what do you say to people that maybe got hooked into that because they went to college, they got a prescription from their doctor, and now they're hooked on it, and maybe they see that, they're aware that there's a problem, but they just, like, they're addicted and they can't stop it. Like, what would you say one of the biggest things to get off, a Vyvanse or Ritalin or Adderall? What would you recommend, and then kind of switch them over to nootropics? What's the best way for someone that's hooked?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I literally did a post this morning on Instagram to talk about one of those compounds, 9-MBC, which is, starting to hit the circles. People are seeing that it's recovering and restorative to their broken brains from freaking Adderall, Ritalin, 10 years of usage, whatever. Look, I think this is a difficult process to reverse, and it will take time. It will take months, depending on how long they've been using them for. And also, we need to address it from multiple angles. Like, yes, we've got 9-MBC, but there'll be other, like, cofactors and neurotransmitters. There was a guy I was working with from Vegas, actually, who was on Adderall for years, and I helped him eventually. It took about, I think it was like 10 weeks or so to get him to a point where he was actually functioning really well without it. So it takes time.
Yeah. That I can imagine that switch over from taking, Adderall and Vyvanse to doing nootropics. Well, I want to talk about 9-MBC because you talked about that's, for recovering people. What is 9-MBC? Why would people take it? Does it increase your cognitive function, or does it just restore? Do you feel anything when you take it? Well, what is this?
So 9-MBC is 9-methyl-beta-carboline. It's from the same, like, I guess, similar chemical structure to those alkaloids found in ayahuasca brew. It's like a spiritual brew. And 9-MBC was actually originally developed as a treatment for Parkinson's disease. And the reason being is because, just for your listeners, Parkinson's disease is dopamine neuron cell death. Like dopamine neurons have died in a certain region of the brain. Now, it was originally developed to restore and actually replenish and build new brain cells, like dopamine brain cells. But the thing is, a lot of these compounds that also blast dopamine, like Ritalin and Adderall, they cause neurotoxicity. They literally will cause dopamine cell death if they're not combined with antioxidants. So 9-MBC comes in and helps to restore the damage. It helps to rebuild neurons. And, the early adopters using dosages between 10 to 30 milligrams orally.
Yeah.
Got a vendor on my site for those listening in.
Plug. Ching ching.
They can see huge benefits like within a week or so. I've had emails come through, like people are just saying like, hey, I've been able to reduce my dosage on Adderall to like 10 milligrams.
Is that all it does, or does it actually make you smarter?
No, there's other compounds that will really enhance.
What makes you smarter? Let's get down to the real shit. What makes you smarter?
Jeez.
Come on, my listeners, they're very straight to the point. Like, sometimes you listen to podcasts and people talk around the subject. What makes you smarter? I want to be smart. What do I take?
You know what I was going to say? I was going to say experience is what makes you smarter.
We don't want to hear that. Come on, what do you take?
Jeez. All right. Well, when it comes to improving memory and cognition and like IQ points.
IQ. No EQ, nothing. Robot mode IQ.
All right. So we're looking at something called PRL 853. This is like in terms of research chemical, this is up there with like the
IQ.
IQ. Like we've seen guys reporting insane increases in working memory. Like that's IQ, intelligence. Or like IQ is, you mean like fluid intelligence? It's pretty like, it's a difficult topic to actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking you because you're one of the leading experts in this field. So if you don't know, then it doesn't exist. So that's my disclaimer. Okay, so what I want to do is like kind of like a game show, rapid fire. What nootropic should I take if I want X? Okay, can you do that or no?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right. Fighters. What do I take?
Something called dynamine, Dynamine, dynamine from Compound Solutions.
Okay, that's it. What's the best? Let's do stacks. Or if you don't recommend stacks, right? I'm going to name different things, different purposes, different fields of business, and then a stack or one doesn't matter. It's up to you. You're the expert.
All right, we'll just do one. We'll stick with one. Yeah.
Okay, stick with one. Fighting or so MMA.
Fighting MMA, like hygenamine, something called hygenamine.
Okay,
that's pretty good.
Figure skating.
Oh my god. Figure skating is the one where they
figure skating, like in the Olympics where they twirl around and it looks all elegant.
Maybe a cup of green tea.
You know what's funny is I don't know if you watch Icarus with the doping documentary that Russia did in the Sochi Olympics, but they apparently, rumor has it, allegedly, they doped everyone, every single person in the Sochi Olympics. That they doped everyone with steroids except for the figure skaters, because they found that if you juice up the figure skaters, you actually do worse. Right? I learned that. I heard that on Joe Rogan's podcast. So allegedly,
it makes sense.
Okay, so we got fighters, we got figure skaters, chess. Chess player, high level chess player. What am I taking?
I'll take something simple like CDP choline, 250 milligrams.
Okay, Okay, got you. Okay, chess. Let's see. Construction worker.
Whew. They need to be alert. They need to be vigilant. They need to be aware of their environment.
And endurance too, because they have to work all day and they have to wake up early.
Yeah, something like tea cream could be good. Tea cream.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay, cool. Construction worker. Scuba diver.
Oh my God. Wow. Underwater. So scuba diving, underwater, almost drown.
I mean, I would assume you have to be, cognitively alert. So probably something that makes your awareness, and especially where you are, you got a lot of sharks. You got to watch out.
Dude, next minute, you're going to see on my website a whole new page. Scuba divers, nootropic stack.
I figured that would be pretty hot in Australia. You guys are surrounded by water.
Yeah. I would say maybe, something simple like acetyl L-carnitine. Yeah, just improves
L-carnitine.
Yeah.
Okay. Texas bull rider.
Wow. Not monster.
Better hold on tight.
Not a monster truck driver. A Texas. Okay.
No, a bull rider.
A bull rider.
It doesn't have to be in Texas. I just saw Dallas Buyers Club one time, and that's the first image that came to my head. But a bull rider.
Okay. I'd say Bromantine. They don't get drug tested, do they?
Oh, yeah. I want to clarify that. Also, if you are a fighter, make sure that any of these chemical compounds aren't on the banned substance list. Okay, disclaimer. Bromantine, no, I don't think so. I think it's a Wild West.
Yeah, that'll be all right.
Okay, cool. And pilot.
Jeez, I'd say the pilot, the one we spoke about before, that's not even accessible. JZP 110. It sounds like a flight. It sounds like a flight name.
I thought it was a rapper. I thought it was like a robot rapper. I don't know. What about? Okay, so let's see there, and then scientist.
Methylene blue. Methylene blue.
Okay, cool. All right, and then now we'll pull back from that. Someone that strictly wants to learn is besides the PRL, or is that the only one for strict learning capabilities? Being able to read something and get it faster.
Lion's Mane. Yeah, it does a good job.
What's your thought process on psychedelics microdosing? Because I heard a lot of people in Silicon Valley, that's a big thing with microdosing psilocybin. Is it all kind of hope dope? Are they smoking the hope dope, or is there some science behind that?
There's a lot of research on psilocybin and LSD in terms of what it does in the brain. I personally, look, it's something that I'm probably eventually I will dabble with in the future. But the reason being is because, first of all, why change something if it ain't broke? That's my theory. Like I've already optimized baseline, whatever. But the second thing is sourcing and dosing is freaking hard. Like I don't trust anyone. I would have to literally see the scientists make it to trust, like, the source. It's just hard to get.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool, man. So obviously I could talk to you for hours. Like this will, I'm super passionate about this. This is why I wanted you on the show. So I always ask my guests these certain things, right? And I'll ask you, if Lucas had a superpower, or maybe Lucas does have a superpower, what is or what would be that specific superpower?
Reading other people's minds.
Professor X. I was going to say that.
Really? Yeah, just something. It's think about what to do with that.
What am I thinking right now? Go.
You're thinking, how can I get this guy to become famous?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's true. It is. God damn, it is true. This guy is no bullshit. Okay, next question. If Lucas had a billboard and you could only put one message on this specific billboard for the rest of eternity, what would that billboard say?
Wow. Um, geez. Boost your biology.
Oh, that's an excellent plug on that big ass billboard. Okay, and then what books have you gifted in the past 5 years to friends, employees, peers, etc., besides your own?
There's one book by one of my mentors, Employee to Entrepreneur. It's a really good book.
Why is that book so important to you? Why would you give that to someone?
Because I look around I look around and see people hate their jobs and they're just grinding it out. But there's so many other options that they can explore, and the book shows people how. Right.
Awesome, man. So let's say somebody wanted to work with you. They wanted to contact you. Obviously, you don't give out your personal information. And let's just say, someone wanted to maybe learn more about nootropics and stuff. They wanted to be on the same level as some of the A-list celebrities that you work with that we can't speak of, because we'll get sued. How does somebody reach out to you? What if somebody wants to buy your course? What do people do?
Yeah, so my mobile number, I'm joking.
My social security number is, drum roll, please.
So the easiest way to contact me is to go to my website, ergogenic.health, and click on the contact section and just send me an email there. I'm happy to reach out. If people want to work with me, they can do that, consulting. And even check out the courses, guys. If you've heard me talk about the Nootropics, check out the Nootropics course. It's full of golden nuggets. And that's pretty much, and YouTube as well. Actually, everyone listening in, subscribe to me on YouTube. Boost your biology.
Yep, that's Boost Your Biology on YouTube. Like, subscribe. And I think we were pretty straightforward in our conversation today. I like straightforwardness. I like my listeners to get the exact stuff. It's like, listen, you're the expert. What do I do? Having said that, is there anything that in a straightforward answer that people could implement that we haven't touched on to change their life? Oh, also, two-part question. What happens? I wanted to ask this earlier and it just popped back into my head. I need to take more nootropics. What happens if? What would you recommend to the person that wakes up maybe fatigued but brain fog, and then they have to drink caffeine and now they're at base level? What specific supplement or stack would you recommend for someone like that? And then anything else that you want to share before we end the show?
So waking up feeling brain fogged.
You're just out of it. You're you can't focus. You're all you feel like you're in another dimension.
So if you want to ascend to the fifth dimension,
your avatar with this giant, giant ass of light. It looks like a moon.
So it wouldn't be a nootropic, actually. Something called Adrenal Cortex by Thorne. That's really good to replicate the effects of caffeine, help with the stimulation. What was the first question? The first one.
So real quick before we move on, Adrenal Cortex by Thorne, actually by taurine. I get that from Thorne. I like Thorne. They're high quality products and high reputable company. The adrenal cortex, is that someone that is just pounding energy drinks and their system is it's gone haywire? Or should maybe someone doesn't drink caffeine, should they take that as well? Or only people that have a problem with, punching their adrenal gland too much with energy drinks or coffee or et cetera?
I'd say people that have, abused or smashed their body through lots of stimulants and things, they respond well to adrenal cortex. It's literally just the adrenal gland extract of a...
Really?
Yeah, it's awesome.
So should you take that and still take stimulants, or you just take that in replacement?
You can use that alongside stimulants with no issues. Yeah.
And you think that would be more beneficial than not?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. And then the second question is, anything else that straightforward answer that can help people today, or maybe, maybe not today, but in general, that maybe you haven't touched on and people don't talk about it as much?
I mean, one that I just love. People do talk about it though. It's wearing blue blockers before bed. They just work, man.
Yeah, how important is that? If someone is on their phone all night, and what happens if you put your phone in night mode? It's not the same effect, or how does that work?
It does have the same effect, but I just like the fact that it's like a behavioral component to it. Like it's almost like a routine thing. Like you're putting on the blue blockers, although it does block the blue light. It's still gonna. It's that routine behavior, because the routine aspect of sleep is overlooked. They say, have a cup of chamomile tea before bed. The same thing, like wearing blue blockers until you fall asleep, and then as soon as you hit the pillow, you put the mouth tape on, which is what I do until my bed.
Oh, do you actually do it? I saw you post on your Instagram. Have you done the bed tilting?
Dude, I sleep vertical.
Really? Jesus. No wonder why you're so advanced. Pretty soon you're going to start sleeping upside down like Goku in Dragon Ball Z. Like a flying eggshell through space with Elon. What should I take to become Goku? How do I get shredded like that? besides testosterone.
We're gonna pass on that question.
All right. We'll save that for part 2. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Lucas, I love talking to you. Your course is great. Anyone that's interested in boosting their lifestyle to the optimal level, whether it's the brain, the body, overall function, I think if anyone's interested in that, and I think we should all be interested in that, quite frankly, I think you're the guy to do it. So make sure you go check out his stuff. And Lucas, any last words before we end this thing?
No, man, just grateful to have another platform to spread the message. So I appreciate you having me on the show, man.
All right, guys. Well, with that being said, I hope you guys have a great night and rest of your day, and we're out.